Hello and welcome. You're watching the Global Reset on CNBC TV18 Prime with me, Prashant Nair. Well, as promised, this is part two of a deep dive into the India aerospace manufacturing ecosystem, where we stand and where we can go from here. In part one, we, of course, discussed the total opportunity size in both the commercial and the defense side of things. Where does the value lie? When we talk about aerospace, I mean, a split between aerostructures, avionics, et cetera, et cetera. What are Indian companies doing in each of these segments? And of course, I mean, the size of the Indian industry as such. Let's take this conversation forward, as I sort of said at the end of part one, and continue to talk to two veterans who've really led global giants in India. So Mr. Srinivasan Dwarakanath is former MD and CEO of Airbus India. He's currently serving as the Director General of the Aerospace India Association. Dr. Bala Bharadvaj is former MD of Boeing's Engineering and Technology Center in India. He's now an independent aerospace expert and SAE fellow. Thank you both for staying on. So part one was fantastic, and I'm sure this is going to be great as well. I want to, Mr. Dwarakanath, start by asking you, I would imagine, right, and I speak to companies in the auto segment, auto component segment, a lot of the manufacturing segments, that aerostructures is where we have a natural advantage. Would I be wrong?
I think you won't be wrong to say that aerostructure is where naturally the Indian companies gravitate to. Simply because in automotive, people have the experience and in working on structural elements. So it's an extension of it. Of course, the quality parameters are very different, but still that's one thing which people immediately take to. And they're very familiar with the machines and other things. So that is one. Secondly, what happened is that when people were looking for procurement from Indian suppliers, it was led by the OEMs. And OEMs still have a significant part of the aerostructures work. And when they started, they looked at aerostructures. And machining is one of the first areas to come in, sheet metal, and mainly on the metallic side. And now people are graduating to composites, parts, assemblies, and so on and so forth, right? So that's where the natural progression happened. However, avionics and systems are a little bit more complicated, but not directly with the OEMs, but it comes from tier ones, and slowly that's picking up as well. So yes, aerostructures, machining, and sheet metal is the place where naturally we gravitated to at the beginning.
You gave me that size of the industry here in India, Mr. Dwarakanath. Would you say largely it is in the aerostructure segment? I mean, over 60, 70%?
I would say that about 60 to 70%, yes, should be in the aerospace, in the aerostructure segment. But increasingly, the opportunity is in the other segments as well. But currently, that aerostructures will still grow, but the growth in other areas like systems, avionics, cabins, we are hoping that that will be much faster as we move along.
Dr. Bala, one would imagine that avionics and electronics is the harder segment to crack in that sense. But Dr.
Yes.
Dwarakanath earlier told us that in aerostructures, OEMs keep 40% of the work within themselves, whereas in avionics, etc., it's all largely outsourced, right?
Correct. So historically, there are companies like Honeywell and Collins and similar companies that have actually garnered, they have specialized in the avionics, and basically they have developed the skills and the engineering to back up the manufacturing as well. That is how it has gone. And the OEMs, both Airbus and Boeing, they basically said, you guys provide us what we need, we will give you the requirement. Similar thing has happened on the engine side. We have several engine companies that specialize in engines, and manufacturing engines is more complex, I would say, more demanding than manufacturing the aerostructure part. However, when you think about avionics, there is I personally believe there is a bigger opportunity, because historically what has happened is that the growth or the evolution of the avionics or the electronics industry has been so much faster than what happens on the structure side, that people tend to upgrade. So even though the airplane itself, the frame of the airframe is valid and working well for 20, 25 years. People want to upgrade the inside, they want to upgrade the cockpit, they want to upgrade the avionics suite. So there is actually a bigger opportunity in my mind when you look at the avionics part of the business.
Yeah, that's an important point, and you see many more interest. I mean, both of you must meet lots of companies, new, old. Are these completely sort of in that sense aerospace first companies, or are they existing companies existing and doing other kinds of work who want to now do this as well? Just give us a sense. I'm talking specifically about avionics and electronics. Dr. Bala, if you want to take that first.
Yeah, I think these are aerospace companies first.
Okay.
Because the requirement is much more rigid. The quality requirement, the kind of parts that go in, that is true on the manufacturing of the structure as well. But especially when it comes to the avionics side, it is not only that it has to work, in the lab or in your shop, but it has to meet very, very stringent requirements in terms of environmental requirements. It has to work, in very, very cold as well as very, very hot conditions, very different from commercial, electronics that we see. So there is this whole concept of ruggedizing the avionics so that it works in multiple conditions and works in places where there's a lot more vibration. It's not like a home or an office where things are much quieter. So companies have evolved to become specialized. For example, in India, you have Bharat Electronics. Bharat Electronics has been developing avionics systems for a long time, and they certainly provide very specialized kind of avionics components. And there are other companies as well. HAL also does that as part of a JV. HAL has its own avionics development besides the OEMs that we talked about.
Yeah. Let's Mr. Dwarakanath, let's talk about engines. Someone said that's like the holy grail. Where are we with regards to engines in India?
If you look at on the commercial side, we've started. Many companies now have started actually working on the parts manufacturing. Doing sub-assemblies for engines as well, because the engine has the hot side and the cold side, right? So it's very complex. When it comes to the hot side. But you see, companies, now are moving up the value chain to manufacture some of the parts and sub-assemblies of the engine as well. And we also see startups, coming in these areas, looking at specifically on the engine as well. But traditionally on the engineering services side as well, we have had companies in the past, working very closely with Pratt & Whitney, GE, and others on the engine, more on the engineering side in terms of analysis. Some of them get into the engineering design as well, so that's happening. But when it comes to actually engineering design or the design of the engines, it's very, very complex, right? So in aerospace, it's not only a combination of, your science and technology, but it is also a lot of thumb rules, which has been developed over the years. So design is complex, and some of the companies, especially some of the startups, are coming up, with small and complete engine designs as well when it comes to rockets and those areas as well. So I think there is a lot of interest coming into engines. But engines also, now we are looking at sustainability of looking at hydrogen as a fuel, looking at hybrid sort of engines and other things. So that's also giving a lot of opportunities for startups to come in and experiment in those areas as well. So yes, more and more engine manufacturing is starting in India, but when it comes to the design, it's much more complex as well. So that's what I would say.
Got that. But when we talk about design, right? It's to use a very bad example. It's not like the iPhone, right? Every 2 years you got a new model which comes up. So you got the 737 family, the 320 family, and the Airbus side. So one would imagine that the design largely remains similar, or no? Because as consumers, I mean, I've only seen this as a consumer. Or is there a lot of constant design, innovation, etc., which is going on?
I'll just take
absolutely.
it. Absolutely.
Absolutely. In fact, when you look at the airplanes, whether it's an Airbus airplane or a Boeing airplane, over the years, from the outside, it looks the same. I mean, the shape is the same, the size is the same, maybe varies a little bit here and there because they have slightly different versions. But if you look inside what the airplane consists of, there are huge improvements going on that the general public doesn't see. In fact, there are numbers that you can see. The cost per mile, for traveling a 1 mile, has actually come down over the years, not only because of improvements on the airplane side, but also on the engine side. In fact, if you are, one of the reasons the engine development and manufacture is very complex is because 1% change in the specific fuel consumption can make or break the airplane in terms of the financial numbers that come out, because almost 30 to 40% of the cost of running an airline goes towards the fuel.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of can I make it, but can I make it in a manner that is competitive? It is as good as what is available today or better than what's available today, because you're looking at an international market. You cannot say that I know how to make it, and because it's made in India, Indian companies will automatically use it.
Yeah.
They won't.
Yeah.
They will only use it if you're making a competitive product.
Yeah. And when we talk about, Dr. Bala, when we talk about design, we're talking about design across all these segments, right? Avionics, even aerostructures,
Absolutely.
engines,
Absolutely.
everything, right?
Yes. And see the design.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think you probably have.
No, I was just asking, why don't we have for example, again, to use another emerging industry, semiconductors, right? There's a lot of semiconductor design which happens out of India. Manufacturing is coming here now. But in the case of aerospace, it seems to be not the opposite, but very little. Am I correct when I say very little design happens out of India?
Well, actually, it's a mixture. For example, if you go back, wind the clock back, go to the 2008, 2010, 11, that time frame, there were a large number of engineers in India working on 787 as well as A380 designs. These were engineering houses that provided large number of engineers doing the detailed design. But then when you talk about design, of an aircraft, you have the conceptual design, you have the high-level design in terms of what the big bones look like, and then there is the detail specific design. So the experience that the Indian companies have is more on the detailed design. There are tools available, computer-aided engineering tools available that one can use given certain parameters and constraints. Now, but the real knowledge, that the OEMs have, and they are not so eager to share with others, is the conceptual design and the parameters that they consider sacred to their business. So, and that's something that's developed over decades. It's not just, I look up a textbook and do it, because there are textbooks available in terms of how to do the design. But if you simply follow that, it's now a guarantee that your aircraft will work. Because very similar to the semiconductor business, there are many pieces have to fit together. And in fact, it is not like you go to GE or Safran and say, hey, I will take that engine. You seem to have 5 of those, so let me take engine number 2. In fact, the engine manufacturer and the airframe manufacturer work very closely together, both in terms of what is already available, how it can be modified, how it can be improved. Will it give me the necessary specific fuel requirement? What kind of maintenance requirement does it have? What is the cost, not only for acquisition, but also cost for maintaining this thing over the long haul? So it's a combination of the design philosophy, the design knowledge, the integration of the various pieces, combined with what does it do to the economics. And this is not something you develop by going to a school and enrolling in a certificate program. This is something that I think Boeing, Airbus, Lockheed, and so forth, they have developed over decades.
Absolutely, and not very keen to share, obviously. Uh, we'll take a quick break. I have to do that. So we'll just continue this conversation. Very interesting on the other side. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Dr. Bala and Mr. Dwarakanath are still with us, and they're running us through how the aerospace industry works, manufacturing, design, and of course, let's talk about a little bit of services as well. Mr. Dwarakanath, at the MRO space, if you can talk to us a little bit about that, where India is and the opportunity here.
MRO, that is a huge opportunity, for India. So there are 4 different areas in MRO. One is called the line maintenance. That's the one which is done in the airport. People come and check your aircraft, and every time it lands and takes off, that's one type of MRO. The second one is, we call it as the base maintenance, or the airframe MRO, where really the aircraft is checked on regular intervals. It goes into the MRO companies, who provide these services, or airlines may have their own MRO as well. Sometimes, it's 2 days checks, or 3 days, or a week, and longer as well. So that's the second aspect of the MRO. And the engines have their own MRO, the engine MRO, and that needs to be done at regular intervals. And last but not least is the different equipment. We talked about avionics, the different equipment, equipment MRO as well. But India today is self-sufficient on the line maintenance, and there are more and more, base maintenance or airframe maintenance MROs coming up. Indigo is setting up their own, Air India is setting up their own. We have some private MROs as well. So that will soon become, I think, when these become full-fledged MROs, they'll be self-sufficient for India needs. And the areas where we need to focus on MRO, which is a great opportunity, is the engine MRO. See, you have the engine players like Safran, Rolls-Royce, and others coming into these MRO, the services, but that's an area where there's a potential. And last but not least is the equipment MRO. Today, I think we don't have that much of capability in the equipment MRO. Nearly, significant part of that, 80% or to 90% is, sent outside of India to do the equipment part of the MRO. So if you look at the overall segment itself, today, we still need to catch up, for the growing India needs. But beyond that, if we can really have, the right skills and the people here, that India can not only, satisfy the needs of MRO for India, but also can be a regional hub, for the Middle East, India, Southeast Asia. That could be a great opportunity for us to move forward.
I mean, so for now, Singapore, UAE, and Sri Lanka, from a report that I was reading, is where bulk of this gets done, right? And as you said, India outsources 80-90% of the heavy equipment maintenance outside.
One aspect of MRO, that is the equipment MRO, they're doing it. I think in terms of the base maintenance or the airframe MRO, we are developing our capability. Yes, some parts are getting outsourced, but we have about 50 to 60% of the capacity in the house itself for India. I think, whereas an engine and equipment, which is probably a little over 50% of the value, that is still getting outsourced at this point in time.
A question to both of you. Are we seeing a fresh spurt of excitement in this space right now? I mean, both of you are trying. And is there any reason why we're seeing it? Briefly, both of you.
All right. Okay. I'll probably take that.
Sorry. Yeah.
In terms of excitement, yes. I think in terms of manufacturing and engineering as well, there's a lot of excitement. Many companies who are not in aerospace, big industrial houses, are wanting to come into aerospace as well, because they see that there'll be plenty of opportunity for 2 reasons. One is that global supply chain, especially on the commercial side, they are struggling. So they want to look for new suppliers and new regions as well. So that's one reason. Secondly, you can see US and Europe, they're all, with the geopolitical situations, investing heavily on the defense side, which means that there's going to be a lot of defense budget. And it'll be the same suppliers, who will be working on the defense as well. Normally, defense gets priority, and so that will put additional pressure on the supply chain as well. So, which means that the global Boeing and Airbus suppliers would be looking for other markets to source from. in Turkey, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these are hotspots for doing this manufacturing and design as well. So India would be it is a great opportunity for India, and India can capitalize on that opportunity. But we need to be ready to capitalize on that opportunity. That's why there is a lot of excitement from many players. Those existing players want to expand, and those who are not there, they want to come into the manufacturing as well.
Dr. Bala, you want to add to that? Also, I want to ask you
Yeah,
whether
so
the government is actively kind of sort of helping in any way with
right.
schemes, etc.
So I think in addition to the regular players, regular meaning the ones who got in, let's say in the last 15 or 20 years, there is a lot of excitement because there are many startup companies who don't want to worry about the problems that people had in the past. They are much more willing to take chances, and both on the space side as well as on the aerospace side, the aviation and airplane manufacturing kind of thing. There are schemes available where companies can go and try out new things, and the youngsters that we have, there is you are aware, there's a lot more willingness to start a small company and try some outlandish things that maybe as a country most of us were not willing to do even 10 years ago. So there is not only the market potential that people understand, but there is also this willingness to take risk, which has become much more acceptable, which makes people go and do things. And there are companies now that are doing, making drones, for example, and they're selling it to the Indian Air Force. There are companies that are making rocket engines by doing additive manufacturing. These are things that this regular older approach did not accept so easily. Whereas when you are a startup, you can try these things. What's the worst that's going to happen? You might fail, and it's okay for the startup to fail.
Yeah.
Whereas it's not okay for an Airbus or a Boeing to fail.
Yeah, no, I think that's an important point, and so much startup activity in that sense, which is visible. Just in terms of, because this is Mr. Dwarakanath, geopolitics helps because it pushes. I mean, people want diversification of supply chains, right? So India benefits, but the kind of stuff that we're seeing, perhaps also countries are. It's I win, you lose. I mean, not win-win. That's where it at least looks like we are headed. Maybe it'll change, hopefully. Is that a hindrance at all in a technology-intensive sector, like in terms of technology transfers? What companies, global companies, and there are leaders here who are willing to share? I mean, just how does that work?
I think if you look at aircraft manufacturing, especially on the commercial side, nowadays we see that there is no one country, which is doing everything. So it's the name, the collaboration is the name of the game, right? So and today, if you look at an aircraft which is coming out of an assembly line, some of the parts of the aircraft are getting manufactured 2 years before, right? Maybe across the world, and we always say that probably the parts travel, much more than the aircraft travels, during the initial part of it. So, but coming back, this is where it is extremely important to have, government, industry, working together in really looking at, how do we do this? Yes, it's geopolitical. A lot of these things need to be looked at. But the cooperation, international cooperation initiatives are extremely important to make things happen. That's one area where we are working with the government as well. Looking at it, today government, especially if you look at the current government's Sankalp Patra when they started, in that they this time for the first time they highlighted that we want to focus on aerospace manufacturing. Right, so that and MRO, for example, and similarly, when we are looking at the defense side as well, we've been working with MOD as well, on upgrading the DAP, that's defense acquisition, the procurement procedure, which they have, to see how we could actually, change that in order for the Indian companies also to get benefit and have that win-win sort of relationship as well. So there are several areas the government is focusing, especially on aerospace manufacturing, both to increase the aerospace manufacturing in the country for our needs, in terms of the defense needs as well, and also to be part of the global supply chain as well. So what is very important is that while for the geopolitical situation, we need to have our independent industry, which can supply for our defense needs. But the volume in terms of the money there, may not be enough to do all the development what we are looking at. And that's where I think we have a huge opportunity to work with the global supply chain on the commercial side. So use that to develop, have the volume there, develop some of the capabilities, and then the same companies can use those capabilities in terms of scaling up, to support on the defense side as well. So these are some things which are happening, at this point in time, and government is taking some proactive steps on really, developing the aerospace ecosystem in the country. Back to you.
No, I think it's been a fantastic two-part session. I'm out of time, but not out of questions. I could go on, and maybe we will. I will request both of you to come back and have many more of these conversations. But really, very useful, just laying the groundwork. We've not even started talking about the economics of the business. How much investment is required, and I'm sure there's no dearth of investors who want to invest in these businesses. All kinds now out there, but. I want to thank both of you, Mr. Dwarakanath and Dr. Bala, for patiently explaining over these two sessions how the industry works, the size, the scope, and the opportunity which lies in front of Indian companies. Thanks, both of you.
Thank you very
much, Prashant.
Thank you very much. Well, it's a wrap on this edition of Global Reset. More comes up on the other side.